Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today. Today's session is going to be on a few useful tools for our users out there. I'm going to give a few more minutes for our users to join and so that we can have an open discussion after the video and just welcome any questions out there. So we'll give it about a minute or two and we'll just go ahead and jump right through. I want to thank everyone out there who's shared videos, new uses with the Perception Neuron suite. We're very excited to share, the technology and also the newcomers that have also used the Perception Neuron version 2. Please make sure to check out our previous video from the previous weeks on the unboxing of Perception Neuron 2.0. And that is one of the great features out there for a lot of our users out there. So let me make sure everything's good and running so that we can start the video. All right, just bear with me 1 second here. All right, so it looks like we're good. All right, so I see Yvonne, thank you for joining us today. With today's session. So I'll go ahead and jump right through to the today's class, and let me make sure I have my handy dandy live chat system here so that I can keep in touch with everyone out there who's watching the video. Make sure my volume's down. Excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into my screen here. Into my laptop so you guys can see today's quick slideshows, and I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible, very useful for everyone out there who's watching this video. So if you have any questions, don't forget, send us an email at contact@neuronmocap.com. That is our email for anything relating to Perception Neuron. Any questions, interests, inquiries, you name it, just send us an email at contact@neuronmocap.com. Okay. I also like to report as well is that we've recently updated our help center to be a little bit more useful, more friendly. Made the layout a little bit more easy on the eyes. Definitely check it out. We're going to be adding new documentation in there. We want our users to be able to use that as a self-support for anything related to Perception Neuron. If you don't see anything out there, send us an email. We can add that to the Help Center. Again, we've actually updated not only the layout, we actually updated the link. So make sure to check us out on support.neuronmocap.com. That is a new link. Make sure to bookmark that for everyone out there. And that's everything related to Perception Neuron, integrations, installation, software, questions, and also any community forum stuff out there. So that's out there for all our users who are new coming in. So what is today's video topic? Today's video topic is the tools menu. Many of our users have used Access Neuron for quite some time and might not understand or not know how to use the tools menu. And actually, the tools menu is a very powerful option here for inside of Access Neuron that allows you to do multiple things. And many of those things are to help you get, obviously, the best motion capture possible. So it's very important not to overlook this feature. Make sure you understand this, and again, if you have any questions regarding this topic, just send us an email. We can elaborate a little bit more. But today's topic should get a little bit, in depth in what goes on with every option here that you have. Okay, so a couple of main questions: what is it good for, and why? So one of the most important, there's three more very important topics here. The first one is being sensor maintenance. Now, a lot of our users use the Perception Neuron on the road, in their home, at a studio, at their office, and it's kind of one of those things that once you're using in those environments, sometimes you might need to might have to kind of upgrade the system. Every time we release a new Access Neuron software, sometimes we release a new upgrade, so we also include the little release notes on that as well. So sensor maintenance is very important. We have sensor maintenance there for upgrades. The next one is for troubleshooting. if you're, if you're capturing and you're using the system, sometimes the sensors are not quite working like you want them, like they were in day one, or they might be giving you some kind of like they're, not showing up on the sensor map or misbehaving, if you want to say. The tools menu will give you troubleshooting options as well. So the third one, which is the most used one, is calibration. Now, if you're using, kind of going back to the first portion here, if you're a road warrior and you're working around different environments, sometimes you might get exposed to some kind of mechanical devices, kind of lights, or maybe through some kind of appliance, home appliance, for you will, and then once you start doing motion capture, you might be seeing some drifts. The capture is not accurate and it's driving you crazy. You're doing the posture calibration, and no matter how well you do the posture calibration, the sensors are not capturing your movements quite right. So you might have to resort to calibrating the sensors. So that's why the tools menu is very important for a lot of our users to do so. And so, for this video, we're going to be using the prop tool cable. Sometimes we refer to it as the tool cable only. But in most cases, we like to say prop tool cable. It looks like this little image here. It's pogo pin ends, and then it has a socket at the other end. And then this is also included for Perception on version 1 and Perception on version 2. So all of our users do have this cable in their tool set for this example. So let's go ahead and carry on and let's get started. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and open up Access Neuron. I actually have it open here for you so we can get started straight through. And with me, what I'm using is I'm hardwired my hub directly to the computer using USB, which is very important, and the only way you can do this. At the end, I have connected the prop tool cable. This is the pogo pin end. Okay, that's a pogo pin end. And then I'll just set this aside, just make sure it's not, juggling anywhere. And then at the other end, I have the socket here. You can see here, this socket is it's empty right now. And then the first thing I was going to do is I'm going to grab just any sensor here, for example, and then I'm going to set this sensor on the socket. Okay, so the first thing I want to see, and I want to do my little checklist, is that I want to make sure that the sensor is behaving as it should right now. And the first things first, I'm going to look at my hub. Right now I see a breathing mode. Okay, so that breathing mode is looking good. I mean, everything's looking good. That's a good status. And then the next thing I want to do is make sure that the sensor is also in breathing mode as well. Okay, so I hope you guys can see that very well. So once the sensor is in breathing mode, I can go ahead and go into the tools menu. And in the tools menu, I have the option of doing calibrating sensors, or I can do the upgrade. So let's start off with the calibrate sensor. So when you calibrate a sensor, it's going to give you this option menu where you have the instructions on how to connect it. We already went through on how to connect it. And I'll click on next. And I'll see my hub, click connect. At this point, you're going to see a radar and it's going to be searching. Okay, so what's happened is Access Neuron is detected, it's connected to the hub, and it's already detected the sensor. So it's kind of doing like a check through for both systems here. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and check and go and now check the status of the actual sensors itself. So right now Access Neuron is giving me a couple of instructions here. It's telling me to place the sensor on a flat surface. Do not move it. Do not disconnect. Make sure it's seated, without any outside of movement. Make sure it's completely still. So what I like personally do, you can leave it like that. Right now it's not moving. There's nothing that's pulling, tugging anything away from it. What I like to do is place my finger on the top of the sensor and just slightly push it down. Now this is optional. This is what I personally like to do. And I'll click on next. At this point, steady pose will initiate, and now my sensor is connected to the dialog here with the calibrate sensor. So now I notice that my hub has gone from breathing mode to flashing mode. Okay, that's what it's giving me right now. And then I can see that the sensor is also in flashing mode as well. Okay, so once that's going on, that lets me know that everything's looking good. And we've basically done a side-by-side view of what's going on. So you're going to see in my dialog here is that there's a little cube, and that cube is actually representing the capturing value on the sensor right now. That's kind of like a representation of the tracking. Okay, so I want to make sure you guys can see that very well. And when I'm calibrating the sensor, what I'm looking for is drift, right? So to keep it simple, I like to tell users that you have two options. You can rotate the sensors every 30 degrees, like so, and make sure that the sensor is not drifting, that is responsive. Okay, right now this sensor is looking fairly well. It's not, I don't see any drift. Now I know I do this by practice already by now. I've done it quite some time. This is another technique I like to do. I kind of rotate it almost 360. Now this is kind of advanced, but you can see that, I'm looking at this sensor right now and it's very responsive. I do not see any drift. As soon as I stop, the sensor actually stops as well. Okay. Okay, and then I'll do, just for extra testing, I'll do a side-by-side. And make sure that there's no drift right now. Okay, so that's showing me and letting me know that right now that's a sensor that's very responsive. It's working well. There's no drift. This is something that you definitely want to on your sensors so that there's no issues with during motion capture. So I wish this sensor was a little bit drifting so we can have a good example. So let's say, for example, this sensor is drifting. If I turn it around and it keeps on moving, you go ahead and click on next. You're going to get a couple of warning here, just letting you know to stay away about 10 centimeters away from any electronic device. Your little warning, just letting you know, do not disconnect. Go ahead and go straight to the calibration, and then just do not power off your laptop or your computer or anything like that. So you're going to see a video here. You have two different options to do the calibration. You have the option of doing like a twirl, with your hand, with the tip of the fingers. There's a slow motion animation here that shows an example. You also have the option of holding at the tip of the fingers as well, the actual socket. I typically don't like to do that because it can be a little bit more tiring than just twirling with the cable. Okay, so let's see. I want to show you here right in front of me. If you guys take a look here, the sensor right in front of me is this is the prop tool cable. I have the sensor right in front of me, and what I'm doing is that I want to make sure that I am holding the cable together very well. I'm not moving during this calibration my sensor closer to the socket, or I'm not moving it away. So once I grip that cable, I'm not letting go. I want to make sure that I'm completely have a good grip on this cable as I'm doing this calibration. So once you get that comfortable grip, you're going to get a countdown. We're going to see in a few minutes, you'll get a countdown here. It's going to go 3, 2, 1. Once that countdown finishes, you want to make sure that the sensor's it's in a resting pose. And then you're going to start doing the following rotations. You're going to go ahead and do the front rotation, like so. You're going to do the top rotation. and you're going to do a side rotation. Now, there's no particular order to do so, but those are the most important rotations you want to do, so that the sensor is calibrating, you know, itself and also reading the environment that's around it. So I'll show you really quick. This is the front rotation. This is the top rotation, and this is the side rotation. Okay, it might look a little bit different. I am lefty, so that's kind of the idea that you want to have during this calibration. Once that's done, now you're going to do that for about less than a minute. Once that's done, you're going to place your sensor down, and then you're going to see a dialog that says that the sensor is actually calibrating. And then you have to wait till it says ready. Once it says ready, you can click next. So we're going to show you that in a few, so you can get a good idea of how to proceed. So let's go ahead and jump into here to the sensor, and I hope you guys can see the movements that I'm doing right now. So you see here you'll see my screen with the instructions, and you'll see the sensor here with the camera facing on the sensor. And I'm going to go ahead and click next. Okay, at this point I can hold the sensor, make sure it's resting. I'm getting a countdown. The socket is at a resting position, and I'll go ahead and start doing the rotations. It's a little bit difficult because I'm doing it as close as possible to the camera so you guys can see what's going on. Now, I'm not doing this like crazy spin style. I'm just kind of doing it, you know, comfortable. Okay, and there you go. It's done. I'll lay that to rest. And you'll see here at the bottom it says ready. Just a little while ago, you see calibrating data. And once it does the calibrating data, it says ready. At this point, I have the option to check the the results. Everything is looking quite well there. Everything's looking even, which is what we want. We definitely want an even circle here full of green lights. Once that is done, and I click next, and then I'm gonna get the dialog that shows the cube and my sensor. So I'll go ahead and retest again how I showed previously, and then continue studying the sensor. And all I'm doing again is just making sure there's no drift, I want to have a sensor that's responsive. So I move, and then I stop, and then I'm looking for responsiveness, okay? If I move, and then the sensor keeps on moving after I stopped, that means there's a drift, and that's when you have to you do the calibration. Of course, I just finished the calibration and everything's looking quite well. Okay? So then once that's done, I can go ahead and click next sensor, and then I can begin with the next one. So let me go ahead and do another one real quick so we can make sure that everyone is in the same boat. And let's go ahead and grab another sensor here from my kit. Click next. Again, I'm holding the sensor in a steady pose. I'm checking the sensor here. And boy, this one's looking good too. Kind of twirling, everything's looking good. This one's responsive as well. Okay, this is pretty straightforward as far as the calibration goes. I'm twisting it, going as well to the left, right. And then everything is looking fairly well. Let me see if I have any luck on finding a bad sensor here that needs to be calibrated. All right, so this one is actually drifting very slightly. Okay. After I stop, I can see that it's moving quite well, so I'll go ahead and click next. Go straight to the calibration module, do the resting pose, and then do my rotations. All right. So once that is going on, I do my rotations as I explained earlier. To the front, to the top, to the side. Okay, until the percentage is to 100%. Okay. Once that says configure calibrate data shows up, I lay my sensor down. Everything's looking good. Click next. And then I retest the sensor. Just make sure everything is responsive. Okay, so this one's looking good. So that's a quick walkthrough how to do the calibration with sensors. Okay, so that is the, going back to where today's topic is tools, calibrate sensor. That's the proper way of doing so. The next window here is the upgrade window. And for this upgrade window, I'm going to use the same prop tool cable that we're using for this example. And then I'm going to bring in a sensor that needs to be updated. So let's go ahead and bring a sensor that needs to be updated. So I go ahead and set it in my socket here, and I go to connect. You're going to see a searching radar, letting you know that the system is checking for the hardware connected. And then you're going to see here the app state is there's like a little red dot there. That means that there's an update that needs to be done. And then let's study the upgrade window. So you have these sensors, and you have the hub at the top. You have the boot state, you have the app state. To the right here, you have the sensor map. Depending on what you have connected right now, for example, I have just a hub and a prop tool cable connected. That's letting me know that the prop tool sensor right now is actually coming up as a outdated firmware. So at the bottom here, you're gonna see that you can actually see the hub's latest firmware and the Perception's firmware sensor for this software particularly. Just to give you a quick note, for this example, I'm actually using 3.8.42.80.A308. So I'll go back into upgrade, go to connect, and then once that goes on, then what I'll do is it's very simple, just hit the upgrade window. You're gonna let that process through. Once that finishes, you're going to hear like a little chime letting you know that the upgrade has been completed. Access joint is going to disconnect from the hardware, and it's going to refresh the connection. So let's give that a couple of seconds for that to finish. Once that finishes, then the sensor is now showing up as green. All green, looking good. Firmware has been updated to the latest firmware. And that's all. That's all it is. Now, this can be kind of painstaking if you're doing one by one, and if you're getting a new software new update for Accident and you have to go one by one. We understand that can be quite intensive, and you can actually upgrade the sensors all together with a full body suit. So for this demonstration, I'm going to do a single arm mode. You guys can see here as on the main camera here that I'm actually using a single arm mode. I have here the left left arm. I'll go ahead and put this on. This is actually one of our working modes. And let's go ahead and do this guy here. Let's put the glove. Okay, and make sure that's nice and fitted. Everything's looking good. I already put these sensors on just to get a head start with this. And at the other end, I have actually a dual pogo pin cable connected to my left upper arm. Now this is just showing an example if you have a full body suit. If you have a full body suit and you have all the sensors connected, it's kind of the same idea. This is just to show you how to upgrade multiple sensors. So I'll go ahead and disconnect the prop tool cable for now. Let's put this guy aside. And then I'm going to grab the end of the dual pogo pin cable that I have connected here. Just make sure I'm free to do this. And then click that into the hub. Right now I have not connected anything into Access Neuron. This is a hardware connection, hardwire. The first thing I'm looking at is that my hub is breathing mode. The sensor is also in breathing mode. Let's see if you guys can see that. It's breathing mode right now. So that's kind of like what's going on right now. So now the first thing I'm going to do is I'll go into Tools, go to Upgrade, go to Connect, and at this point you're going to see now that this kind of looks like a Christmas tree. This is not what you want. You want to have all green throughout, meaning everything's up to date, nothing is out of date. You can see here that the app version is 1.0.1.2, and actually the latest version is 1.0.1.5. So all my sensors are showing up. I'm getting red and green, so I want to go ahead and do the upgrade. Click on Upgrade, and just let that go through. It's quite simple, very, very fast. If you're doing, you're gonna hear that chime again. If you're doing 32 sensors, you're gonna hear all 32 chimes going throughout. But this is good just to have, just in case if every so often we make new releases of Access Neuron with an updated firmware versions. And this is also very important for all the other users, older users that have been around with us since the beginning. Definitely recommend upgrading the sensors and just making sure that everything is up to date. That is the sensor maintenance, so that you have the best firmware update for motion capture. So once that is done, we already saw that Access Neuron disconnected and reconnected, refreshed the connection, and now it's gone through the whole entire list of all my sensors, and now everything is up to date. I can see, the location of each sensor, and then that's ready to go. So that was quite fast. There's an option of doing the single prop tool cable, and there's also the option of connecting the entire suit and doing the whole update that way. So that is also very helpful, very important. So once I finish, click Finish here on this button, and then I can go ahead and disconnect my cable here from the hub, and I'll go ahead and just remove this glove from my hand. And I'm ready to put this aside. And so let's go ahead and talk about the next issue here, that troubleshooting. Okay, one of the most important questions here is troubleshooting the perception on sensors. We already went through the calibration. Calibration is it's part of the maintenance to do, and also the updates, upgrading the sensors is also part of the sensor maintenance. So now, what about troubleshooting? So a lot of our users, in many cases, they might run into a couple of issues with the sensors, and they don't know exactly, okay, what's fixed wrong with that. So we're talking about the 0.3 hertz issue that some of the sensors are. Now, I'll go ahead and put the sensor in my socket here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So last week, actually, I received these sensors from one of my colleagues, and he was telling me, oh, this sensor is not working. The sensor is dead. That's what he had said. So this sensor, as soon as I put it on the inside of the socket, what I noticed that first thing I'm going to notice that it's flashing. It's not doing one of the two normal states, which is breathing mode, and it's not doing the constant flash. It's not doing that. It's just doing a sudden flash, which is like kind of what we like to call the 0.3 hertz flash. And let me make sure you guys can see that. If you guys can see here through the Mevo, one of our cameras here. Okay, this flash here, it's what I like to do is I like to count basically 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 1 Mississippi. So every like 4 seconds it's going to be flashing. Every 4 seconds it's going to be flashing, and it's just a really quick flash. And the reason why this happened is because basically, well, sometimes the firmware and the sensor might get corrupted because maybe the system was disconnected at the wrong time, maybe because the sensor was not placed correctly at the point of connecting to Access Neuron, or simply because during the update the firmware was corrupted or something like that. Well, if you get this result where it's flashing, what's going to happen is that it's not going to show up inside of your sensor map. The sensor is actually going to not show up at all on Access Neuron. So you're going to think, hey, this is not working. This is a dead sensor. No, it's not. It's just the firmware needs to be reinstalled. Very simple, very easy to do, and you can do so by going into Tools and to the Upgrade window. So let's go ahead and show you how to do so. So right now, as you can see, I have the sensor on the socket. I can see here that it's doing the flash, which is like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, and flash, and it's going to do that. It's just there's something going on with the sensor. So this is the way you do it to fix it. So you're going to, I'll show you here on my computer screen. I'm going to Tools. I go into the Upgrade window. I'll connect to the equipment list. And one of the things you're going to notice here is that we get an error dialog. So what's going on is Access Neuron is detecting the hub, but it's not detecting any other sensors. So it's kind of asking like, hey, what's going on? Do you have a sensor attached and it's not showing up, or you just want to do a hub upgrade? In this case, it's not detecting any sensor, so it's one of those things that is asking you, is giving you an option to do a forced firmware update. So what I will do is I'll go into click the first one, which is letting you know that it's telling you that there's a sensor connected that's showing up 0.3 hertz flash, and I'll go ahead and click on this option. As soon as I click that option, click next, and what it's going to be doing right now, it's going to do a force firmware update. Okay, once that is done, okay, same thing is going to happen. Access Neuron is going to disconnect, reconnect, it's going to refresh, and you're going to go ahead and do that until the sensor begins to work again. So right off the bat, as soon as I did that, the sensor is now working as it should. And all we basically did is just reinstall the firmware update. So that is one of the troubleshooting steps that you can do through the upgrade window. If you're having that 0.3 flash hertz, and like I said, that's going to be a flash that's going to go every 4 seconds. It's going to be just intermittent flash, 4 seconds, 4 seconds. So I'll go ahead and click finish. So this sensor is now breathing mode, which is what we want. It's actually breathing with the hub. So this sensor is back to normal. And then I have another sensor here just to show you one more time. I'm going to put the sensor here on the socket, and I'm noticing that I'm also getting the 0.3 hertz. It's just flashing, nothing else. I'll go ahead and go into Tools, Upgrade, go to Connect. And I'm getting this error again. It's saying that, hey, there's a hub, but there's no sensor. Do you have a sensor connected and it's not showing up? Of course I do. So I'll go ahead and select the first option, click next. It's going to force reinstall the firmware update. It's going to disconnect, reconnect. And at this point, just give Access Neuron a few more seconds to reinstall again. Right now, it looks like it wants to do it one more time. There's a second option there as well. Click next. All right. If that does not happen, you want to go ahead and start from the beginning. So make sure that the sensor is placed right. It is possible that I might have placed it incorrectly, so let me click on Finish. Just disconnect it. Reconnect. All right, so let's go to Tools, Upgrade, Connect. Same thing, I get the error we experienced the first time. Click Next. It's going to initiate the force reinstall of the firmware update. Okay, just give it a few seconds for access neuron to do that again. So in some cases that this sensor might not show up. It's one of those sensors that it's not working, so I'll go ahead and put this one aside. And then I'll bring in another sensor here. Same scenario. I'll click on Tools, Upgrade. I'm checking that the sensor is actually also having a 0.3 hertz. Click Connect. Click on the first option. Force reinstall the upgrade for the firmware. Okay, you're gonna hear that little chime. And then access neuron is gonna refresh the connection. And then the sensor is gonna come up again. I also see that there's doing a breathing mode, so this sensor is back to normal. So that's the way to troubleshoot any sensor that's giving you a 0.3 hertz flashing mode. It's not notifying that it's not a bad sensor. It just needs to be the firmware needs to be reinstalled one more time. So that is all for today. That's the tutorial that I wanted to show you as far as the tools menu goes. It's a very small list of tools out there, but it's very powerful. Very useful for our users to have so that every so often they can do maintenance on the sensors, make sure that their sensors are up to date, and troubleshoot any sensors that might be causing any issues as far as 0.3 hertz, they're not showing up on the sensor map, something like that. So I also want to notify everyone as well is that the sensor label, the red and green coloring inside of that sensor map does not reflect the values that you might find in a sensor map on the access neuron main panel, main window. Those are two different kinds of sensor maps. Sensor map on the upgrade window is letting you know the firmware and the upgrade status of the sensor. On the main window of access neuron, the sensor map is actually telling you the quality of data that's coming through inside of access neuron. So all in all, that's today's quick discussion today. We're going to keep this video up there for everyone to have so that they can use it as reference. Definitely thank you everyone who joined us today for viewing this video, and anyone else who's going to be watching this video going forward. Thank you again for watching this video. If you have any questions, send us an email at contact@neuromocap.com. So I'll go ahead and jump into any questions out here to see any open discussions out here. So it looks like today we'll keep it short, very, very short today. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're gonna keep on doing these videos going forward for everyone to have out there as reference, and we greatly appreciate everyone that contacts us afterwards or during the video. So thank you so much everyone out there. Next video is going to be talking a little bit more about face rig and some other integrations with Perception Neuron. I hope today's video helps everyone out there with troubleshooting and upgrading and maintaining their sensors. So thank you so much, and we'll see you till next week.